We're live.
Yeah. Good evening, all of us in the Zoom room today and who are watching this event live on Facebook. Welcome to Grounded Voices, session number 48. This is, as many of you who've been part of the Grounded Voices series have been noticing, this has been an effort that National Alliance of People's Movements has been undertaking throughout 2021, where speakers from different social locations, different people's organizations, academic backgrounds, and mass movements have been speaking on a whole range of issues concerning contemporary socio-political, economic movements and struggles. Previously, we had an entire month's sessions dedicated to the struggles of Adivasi communities in the fifth schedule areas of central and eastern India and some other states of north and west, almost 10 states, and that was quite an intense effort. On similar lines, we thought it would be really important to engage, understand, and learn from organizations, academics, and comrades in some of the northeastern states where the sixth schedule of the Constitution applies. So in the month of December, we've been organizing sessions on four major states where the sixth schedule of the Constitution directly applies. So far, we've had sessions on Meghalaya and Mizoram in the first 2 weeks of December. And today we have a very eclectic panel of comrades who would speak on the Tripura context. And our last session in this series would be on Assam. So the Tripura session is basically the primary ADC over here is the Tripura Tribal Development Autonomous District Council. There are a whole range of issues that comrades from Tripura would be speaking about. Broadly, we thought we would curate the session along the lines of questions of ethnicity, governance, and resource rights, which would also, of course, include questions of ecology, etc. So these are broadly three threads that a lot of ongoing movements and thinkers and communities on the ground have been engaging with. In the particular context of Tripura, of course, there are a whole range of issues, including political aspirations for separate Tripura land, but also more sharp questions around the changing demographics of the state, the region, which has been happening for a while, the rights of the communities, indigenous communities, to constitutional rights, to resources, and also the many issues of governance of the ADC itself. For instance, last week, even in the Mizoram session, we heard extensively as to how there is so little financial autonomy that the ADCs actually have. So in today's context as well, I think with the state of Tripura, we will understand much more from the speakers. We have a very interesting panel of 6 speakers with us today, including Professor Walter Fernandes. We have Advocate Romita Reang, we have Dr. Lincoln Reang, we have Biswaranjan Tripura, Thomas Malsom, and Sunil Kalai. So welcome to all the speakers, and we are sure all of them would bring in very significant perspectives into the discussion today in terms of understanding and engaging with these themes of Tripura. Our moderator for today is Dr. R.K. Debbarma. He is a assistant professor at TISS Guwahati. A very brief introduction to Professor Debbarma. He is also the chairperson of the Unit for Research and Development. He co-developed the MA program on Peace and Conflict Studies at TISS. His areas of research have focused on space, place, and politics, political theory, and identity politics in the northeast of India, with one of his latest publications, which has been looking at tribal politics in the state of Tripura, a spatial analysis. He has also published on conflict resolution in Tripura. Been following Dr. Debbarma, have also been reading his writings. Of course, there are various responses to what he's been writing, but he's been a very important voice in terms of articulating many of the concerns of indigenous communities from the state. So we are thankful to Professor R.K. Debbarma for moderating the session and helping us understand and also weave the many dimensions of issues that all the speakers would bring in. So with this, I welcome all of you to today's session and hope we learn and engage from the perspectives of all our speakers. Yeah, over to you, Arki.
Thank you, Mira, for bringing together this youthful panel, and I say youthful because I want to include Walter as well. With still active, prolific writing on issues in Northeast India. The speakers today, I think I know most of them. I think Sunil and Lincoln and we go way back to our college days in Shillong. We were, I think, briefly worked together as in the student union in Shillong, and now I think two of us are all in the universities. So I'm looking forward to listening to both of them as well. But more importantly, I think from my brief conversation with Bishwa and Romita and Thomas, there would be, I think, new interesting voices that's coming up from Tripura. Probably, I think we should pay attention to what they have to say on issues of governance and laws in Tripura. And of course, Walter has just written a book on Tripura along with Thomas Malsom, who is speaking today. It's a brilliant book that I think is about to come out in about a few weeks' time. I would encourage all of you to take a look at that book. I think any activist or researcher should begin their understanding of Tripura by reading that book. Probably, I think Walter would be able to tell us more about that book later. So for today, I think we can begin by I was supposed to begin with Lincoln, who would have been the right person to give an overview of the ADC. But since he's coming in late, at some point, we'll begin with Biswaranjan, who will be talking about governance in the ADC areas. Over to you, Biswa.
Okay. Just a minute. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Oh, okay. So how many minutes do I have, Arki, for the?
So it took about 12 minutes, 12 to 13 minutes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, 12 minutes. Okay. Thank you, Arki, for introducing me to the talk. And since I do not have a lot of time, so what I'm going to do is that whatever that I'm going to discuss here is going to be just a summary of what I'm working, what I'm writing presently, similar to this particular topic. So, and since Dr. Lincoln is going to cover on the political history of the 6th schedule in Tripura, so I'm not going to deal much about that. And straight away, what I'm going to deal is more of a contemporary on the problematic practices of local governance in the tribal areas of Tripura. So I would, the flow of my presentation will be like this. I'll give you the background of the 6th schedule in Northeast and in Tripura in a brief, and I will straight away go to the actual problematics of the governance systems in Tripura, where I bring into the nexus between the revenue districts and the autonomous district council zonals, and also the nexus between village committee, block advisory committee, and also sub-zonal development office. And I would reflect on the possibilities of strengthening local governance in Tripura and my final reflection. So the 6th schedule that the 6th schedule that we call is actually in practice as per the Article 244(2) and 275, one of the Indian Constitution, which was exercised since 1952, which I call it is a very ingenious political outcome of the historical experiences of the tribal communities and the tribal areas of the Northeast. So this is rooted in the history of the political integration of Khasi, Jantias, Garos of Meghalaya, Lusai tribes of Mizoram, and the tribes of Assam. So this process of integration arrive through the political instrument that underscore the frame of reference for tribal governance in the Northeast region. And this is basically to imagine a political space for a mutual dialogue and a coexistence between the state and the tribal traditional institution to prevent centralization as well as the ethnic majoritarian instrumentalization of governance. It is also imagined as a political space for mutual integration of very tribal communities within the state and nurtured governance process built on respect for tribal identities and dialogue. So this became a base for decentralization, devolution, and democratization of the grassroots politics towards effective response to the issues of tribal areas in Northeast. So with this context, if I were to relate to the context of Tripura, given the emerging conditions of the marginalization of the tribal communities, Tripura Tribal Area Autonomous District Council got established as per the 6th schedule in 1984. So some call it as sub-state level institutionalization of tribal identity. Some might call it as state within a state. Others also call it as constitution within a constitution. So the present TTDC is spread across Tripura that constitute around 68.10% of the total administrative geography of the state, where the tribes consist of approximately 84%. So this kind of situate a tribal and non-tribal population under a dual administrative structure, but however, without clear territorial protective legislation. So today, this unit runs across the 8 revenue districts of the state and is administratively, spatially, and socially interspersed with the areas covered under the Panchayat Raj system of Part 9 and 9A of the Constitution. So let me now get into straight away on the nexus between the revenue district and the zonal districts. So I'm assuming that some of us who are listening to me are quite, are somehow similar, somewhat familiar with the TTDC system. However, I want to emphasize that the political agency of the TTDC is subjected to 2 planning and administrative lines, that is the State Department and the Council Department. So if you were to see the State Department, where all of us are quite familiar about it, and you will see there are revenue districts, and under it you have district collectors, you have subdivisional magistrate, and you have block development office. Whereas something very unique about the 6th schedule of Tripura is you have a district council, the headquarters is Kumilung, and the Kumilung is again divided into 5 zones, 5 zonal development office, but in practice there are only 4 as of now. And you have sub-zonal development office, and at the end you have a village committee, which is somewhat similar to the Gram Sabha in elsewhere. So there is also something called block advisory committee, which kind of acts as a convergence unit. So I will come to see this, the problematic of all of this unit, in a few moments. So I have conducted this fieldwork as part of my ICSSR projects, which I conducted this fieldwork along with another colleague of mine around the year 2017 to 18. Again, for some of the project, I was in the fieldwork in Tripura around 2018 to 19. So the fieldwork, so the data that I draw mostly are from 2017 to 18. So Tripura was during those years, it was in the kind of a transition phase, because there was another, government, who was into power for 25 years. And again, there's a new government who came into power. So there was a lot of transition that took place at that particular moment of time. So as I said, the zonal development office, there are 5, but however, in practice, there are 4. 4 because Gandasara, which is supposed to be one of the zonal office, was actually shifted to Dalai district. That when I spoke to the people in the Gandasara, they said that there's a lot of complaint which says that, they were not considered when the zonal development office from Gandasara was shifted to the Dalai district. So which when I spoke to the government person, they said that, so that for the convenience of the administration, so that's why it has been shifted. So therefore now in practice, it remains 4 zonal. So on record, if you see the work of a zonal development office is supposed to be, supervising, monitoring of different programs and projects, then again, you have a sub-zonal. At the sub-zonal level, you have a sub-zonal development committees, and who are supposed to work in relation with zonal development office and sub-zonal. Okay. However, in practice, what I saw was that most of the major decision on the implementation of the development projects and schemes was actually routed through the district magistrate and the block development office. For example, you could say MG Narega, which the implementation actually takes place through district magistrate, and the zonal development office and the sub-zonal are just as an intermediaries, act as an intermediaries created by the block and the district level. So when I spoke to one of the senior most zonal development officer, what he said was something very unique. He said in Kokborok, which means like the zonal of ADC is toothless. Okay, so which means they are like completely under the control of the state administration process. Okay, so further I visited sub-zonal development office. Then I saw that the employees were hardly active, and the locals surrounding the sub-zonal development office were also knows that the zonal development office, they're aware of the neglect of the poor condition of sub-zonal development office. There is also one of the example where I got to know that one of the sub-zonal development office were not being able to pay even the electricity bill for their own office. So therefore, the people from the electricity department has to come and they have to disconnect or disconnect the electricity. So we know from this case the poverty of the zonal and sub-zonal in this process. So it relates to the finance in this matter. Then again, the state government also has constituted additional committee named called Block Advisory Committee, which is supposed to be the final decision-making authority at the micro level planning process. So this in fact has made zonal and the sub-zonal as subservient to the DM, Block Development Office, and the Block Advisory Committee. Okay, so according to many leaders at the ground level, they said that process has actually declined in the political agency of the ADC structure as enshrined under the 6th schedule. So when I spoke to one of the MDC means member of district council, so he said and he suggested that one way to empower the political agency of the TTADC structure is to strengthen the zonal development officer as equivalent to district magistrate and sub-zonal development office as equivalent to block development officer. So now let me get into another nexus between village committee, block advisory committee, and the sub-zonal development office. So basically, if you look into how does the micro level process take place in Tripura, is the village committee. Village committee prepares a village sanction, or they used to have usually village sabha where people are called and they used to write reports, and this reports is being submitted to the block advisory committee when they have to get an approval from the block. Okay, so in my observation, what I found was this is the practice of submitting the village planning reports directly to the block development office of the locality as per the direction of the government has actually strengthened the district magistrate, but gave secondary role to sub-zonal development office. So moreover, during my field work, I witnessed that the chairman of the block advisory committee, whose office room is actually located close to block development office. So this practice actually in a way led to the disconnect between the village committee and the Tripura Tribal Area Autonomous District Council. So on this, when I spoke to one of the village committee members, he even told me that that he is not aware of sub-zonal development office, which is part of the village committee, or they are supposed to work in relation with zonal and sub-zonal and village committee. Okay, he actually told me, and he actually has never even seen the sub-zonal development office, the village committee member, one of the village committee member. So therefore, the village committee function mainly under the district and the block administration, with or without the consultation of zonal or sub-zonal. Okay, so therefore, in practice, what I saw was that there's a minimum involvement of the sub-zonal with the activities of village committee, and in some cases, they were not even involved in the development process. So for example, for instance, if you take decision on the construction of the village road, bridges, ponds, and irrigation, or I can say IOI house, or construction of the community building, most of these decisions were made through village committee in relation with the block development officers. So let me just take, in 2 minutes, I'll finish. I think I've taken a lot of time. So what are the possibilities of strengthening the local self-governance in this process of problematic? So what I see is that there is a need to amend the 6th schedule to converse village committee with the district council system. And also the micro level activities as arrived in the village Sangsad should come directly under the district council. And the zonal and the sub-zonal should be empowered and become functional. So there should be a new legislation on block advisory committee included within the 6th schedule to ensure fair convergence between the zonal and the block. And the BSS should not become, which is the block advisory committee, should not become a mechanism for the assimilation of the 6 scheduled areas into the Panchayat Raj institution. If this goes on, then the zonal and sub-zonal will become irrelevant. This means TTDC will remain as dormant institution, like what zonal development officer said, that it's kind of a toothless tiger. Okay, in conclusion, I want to emphasize that the possibilities of deepening local governance in the 6 scheduled areas of Tripura will come only when it is pursued through the constitutional morality of the 6th schedule in the spirit of reconciliation, mutual dialogue, and coexistence. Also, the state, whichever political ideology they might abide with, should have the political willingness to believe in the idea of territorial governance or as enshrined in the constitution. Not believing in this idea means they will not see the usefulness of TTDC to make it fully functional or empower it, or might even emphasize gradually on the idea of having single administration, which is emphasizing only on revenue districts, and subsuming TTDC forever within a revenue district, which means one day perishing TTDC forever in the long run. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bishu. I think that was the ground picture that was missing for a long time for many of us who live outside of Tripura. Now we'll move on to Romita Reang. Romita Reang is a lawyer by training, and she's a PhD scholar at Northeast Hill University. She has an interesting stories about how to deal with customary laws and codification in Tripura. Looking forward to listening to you, Romita. Over to you.
Thank you, RK. Am I audible? Is
yes,
it okay?
yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. This is Romita Reang. Yeah, as I'm the only women panel in this forum, so I have a big role to put up women's voice in this platform. And also, I will be touching upon the gender issues, considering the customary laws, and also I will touch upon the women's rights and protections with the time allotted to me. So I will just highlight a few points, and I will go on with the gender issues. Yeah, so as we all know that whenever there is inequality or gender discrimination in the society, it is a violation of the concept of constitutionalism and also principles of rule of law, which is equality before law and equal protection of law, and with absence of arbitrariness. So the entire idea of equality is the one which the entire legal system, the entire country legal system is rest upon. So the whole world is striving for equality to eradicate the gender discrimination. And it is accepted fact that women's participation and involvement in all fields is very vital for all-round development of society. And also women have always played a vital role for the social change and transformation. So now let me focus on my state and with specific to Tripura Tribal Autonomous Areas District Council. So the main question comes here in is that how to secure better position of women in Tripura autonomous areas, or what are the barriers to secure better position of women? So when I think of this question, few points comes up, but I would like to highlight mostly the points as I'm from legal background. So I would like to first go with access to justice. So indigenous women access to justice, mostly in the traditional judicial system, which is governed by customary law and practices. And this is one of the judicial governance under the Autonomous District Council. So customary laws and practices which are protected under the Constitution for indigenous rights, and also the customary laws, the entire knot is on the process of codification, especially with regards to Tripura. The codification is on process, drafting codification is going on, and mostly the majority tribals practice the customary law for adjudication of dispute at the village level. So this is one of the alternate dispute resolution mechanism. So I would like to highlight here is this in this customary practice and governance, I would like to highlight the community-based gender discrimination, because we often know that gender discrimination is a big issue globally, and if it is done if it is done by the outsiders or outside the community, often we are very quick in responding, protesting, and it is very easy to fight back for it. But when it is at the community level, the discrimination happens at the community level by our own close person or people, then there comes sometimes like those are not being recognized and those are not being acknowledged, and it becomes difficult to fight back. So I would say that it is a community-based gender discrimination, which very less it is being highlighted. Because many times, like in the process of this customary law, there are both demerits and merits. So of course, there are lots of merits also, but like this is one of the alternate dispute resolution, which is settled at the village level. It is it is a speedy trial, decisions are taken quickly, easy access, community friendly, more acceptance, no need, less expenditures, no language barriers. So these are the major positive points, and also it is for the identity of the indigenous community. But still there are lots of negative things. So I have done a quick research on it, and I have come across many negative points, but I would like to just highlight a few points. The major thing here is the patriarchy, because we still live in a society which adopts patriarchy mindset. And the entire system, the entire traditional judicial system at the community level is man-centric, and it is a male-dominating forum. So as we know that the culture of patriarchy actually harms both gender, that destroys the concept of equality and also harms the society. And we all know that customary law practices since time immemorial. So I will not go back to the history or past, but I would like to focus on the present, that is 21st century. So at this point of time, still customary laws are prevalent and it is being practiced at the village level. And what happens here is mostly decisions are being made by the men, flocks, and till date, there is no women who are in decision-making positions. And in fact, women participations and involvements are very less during the process of decision-making or decision-giving. So many a times, there are matters like which are taken up at the village level, like the family law disputes, the matrimonial issues, property issues, and often in some places we see that even cognizable cases are being taken up, which they don't have a jurisdiction. But it happens because it is still uncodified, unwritten, so there is no one to monitor and no complaints goes against it. So it happens in some places. But what I would like to focus is, as we know that there are many that women's rights are sometimes being infringed and violated at the village level dispute mechanism. So in this entire system, as it is male dominating, so women participation are very low. Only a complainant women or the family members participate in this process. So even the women elders participate very less. So in that way, sometimes, especially in matters of matrimonial disputes, the decisions goes on the basis of the understanding of men. So there is chances that women-centric laws are not being upheld. So many decisions goes like that. And during the course of my legal fellowship, I have also done a study on traditional judicial system structures, and I have come across many cases like which are derogatory to the constitutional provisions, which violates the basic women's rights. So especially with regards to women property rights, especially widow. So yes, I admit that many writers and scholars have written that status of indigenous women share equal status and highly respected. I do agree with this, but only few percentage of women have those privileges. Otherwise, still a majority of women, they still suffer, they face discrimination and violation of their basic rights. So this is one of the nature. And as I have mentioned that it is uncodified and unwritten laws. So here, the biased nature of adjudicators, especially in terms of property laws, family laws related, and the principle of natural justice are not upheld. The equal opportunity to be heard, fair trials are not being conducted. So in this way, the physical power, the family power plays a vital role, and And many a times, like women have to agree with whatever is being given out, or whatever decision is being given out. And as I have seen that since codification and it is unwritten law, that's why it is upon the liberty and integrity of the adjudicator, like which gives decisions on his own understanding. So irrespective of whether it is violating the human rights or principles of natural justice or constitutional provisions. So the reason behind this is like mostly the adjudicators himself, it's uneducated and unaware of the constitutional laws and the provisions. So the key point here is that we have a vital responsibility to empower and encourage and also to educate the adjudicators. But however, like I'm hoping that with the new draft customary laws which are on process will give a ray of hope for justice at the local level. And also like in this process of codifications, more women participation or to consider the women point of view is very vital and very essential, especially if it is in matters of matrimonial disputes. And I still can say that if there are some sections of people like not even my community, I will like say about the whole community, means tribes in Tripura, like who are on process of codification, that it will be very vital, like if we devoid the patriarchy mindset, and also the customs and the practice should not violate human rights. So as drafting is in process, so it is the primary responsibility of the governance of the administrative authorities and executive authorities to look into the constitutional validity and also to uphold the human rights as well. So I would also stress a little bit on the protection of women, especially in our state. So the laws and protections which are right now, we are seeing day to day that what are the measures being taken for the protection of indigenous women, especially in autonomous areas. So we have all the statutory laws and provisions, but still that the functions are the statutory laws and functions are with the state. So with specific measure to this, like more measures or more preventive measures need to be adopted for the protection of women's rights at the community level or in the indigenous, especially considering to the indigenous women in the autonomous areas. So more legal awareness and more awareness and empowerment of women is very necessary. And also just a few, I have taken so much time, but just one, I think I'll take another 1 minute to wrap up. The other concern is women's participation in the grassroots level democracy. So more women's voice, more women participation is very necessary at the grassroots level. So this is also one of the major concern that there is lacking of women participation in especially in the decision making. So of course now in this current situation that yes, women are coming up, women are educated and coming forward, but I feel like we need more women to join hands and stand for each other and fight for the good cause. So as at one point of time, like women, educated women are there, but we lack taking responsibilities. So we need to have a realization of taking up responsibilities, especially during the course of the social transformation and for the protection of indigenous women's rights. Because to ask for the power and exercise rights, we need to understand, we need to take up the responsibilities. So just by saying this, like if women doesn't come and stand up for their own cause, doesn't fight, then the power will go to in others' hand, because as we all know that power corrupts, and absolute powers corrupts absolutely. So if we don't take care of our rights and responsibilities, then it will go to others' hands and it will be corrupted. Yeah, thank you so much. I'll wind up here.
Thank you, Romita. I know you have a lot of things to say. We will come back to the conversation later after all these questions have taken their time. May I now invite Thomas Malsom. Thomas is a PhD scholar at NEHU as well, and he's in the Department of Sociology and has recently written a book with Walter, that book that I mentioned in the beginning. Over to you, Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And I also thank the National Alliance of People's Movement, the Grounded Voices, for organizing this event and for inviting me and giving me an opportunity to share some of my research findings. I'm afraid, even though I may not be able to share a concrete and new perspectives or the insight, as I'm very much new in this field, in particular in the research field, because I'm currently pursuing my PhD program from Northeastern Hill University. And as sir have mentioned about the recent book that I have written with Dr. Walter Fernandes, that I'm very much grateful to him. And for today's this presentation, I will try to give my recent. It's still going on. I mean, still it's a work in progress. I'm still trying to collect my data. I'm still trying to analyze properly. So, but still, I will try to just share with you my findings, or so far what I have come across or have understood the problem related to the issues of governance and the resource rights and ethnicity in the 6 schedules and the tribal areas of Tripura. So basically, I will be talking on that, how despite the existence of the Land and or the Forest Rights Act as a resource rights, that how indigenous tribal communities are facing an everyday challenges, particularly in the effects of the recent solid waste like a project that has been implemented, or the landfill for the garbages have been identified in the 6th schedule in tribal areas of Tripura. So as we know that Sir Lincoln is going to deal with the historical part of the DC, but let me just tell you a little bit that the indigenous tribal communities, we know that basically in Tripura, they live in the forest lands, and earlier in the olden times, they don't have any legal rights over land or the forest and their resources. Kings were the absolute owner of the land or the territory. And however, the communities, they enjoyed the rights their over land and the forest and the resources for their livelihood or the sustenance. But when the princely state of Tripura joined or merged with the India, they have all the territories or the administrative were taken over by the government or the state particularly. So, however, with the new autonomous administration, that is Tripura Tribal Areas Autonomous District Council, which is a DC, which was created within the state under the provision of the state schedules to provide for the self-rule of for the indigenous tribal communities. It was particularly created for the recognition, the demand of the tribal population of Tripura for the self-rule or for their autonomy, for their social culture and economic and the political aspirations. So, however, when we see the management of the land or particularly the natural resources, what I have found, and after attending some of the discussion or the other seminars, I've come to see that particularly in the Tripura, that even now, so even though some of the land, it might come under this DC, but what I see is that it is still legally, the state is the custodian of all the territories and natural resources. like particularly the Tripura Forest Department, which is principal custodians of the forest and forest resources. And like even though if we look at the Forest Rights Act 2006, which is to undo the historical injustice occurred to the forest dwellers, particularly the indigenous tribal communities, and if you look at the key activities like the which is implemented by this Tripura Forest Department, where it talks about the afforestation, regeneration, or the joint forest management with the participation of the local communities for the protection or the implementation of the schemes of the FRA land, or getting a patta land. But what I see is that recently I was pretty much like was not happy, and I was also afraid that if this kind of activities it also takes place in my area, in my village, because just near maybe probably just five 4 to 5 kilometers away from my village, the solid waste disposal or the landfill was identified. So in the Dalai district, I'm from a Dalai district of the Tripura. So all the waste from the town of the Ambassa are being taken to the village. So I was like, this is something which is not, it's not thing is happening. So I should go and check it out. So I will just share with you my field visit, that how the people of that particular area are living, because uh, it's been a year. It's been a year where the village of it's called Kalachari in district Dalai of Tripura, where the village was used as a landfill for the solid waste disposals, or in simple word, we can say that that village has turned into a garbage dumping ground, which is in the six scheduled tribal areas. So now the identification of this landfill for these solid waste disposals, or bringing up those all the garbages, uh, like it started in the village without the consent of the community, or without informing any legal notice, or at least saying that, oh, from tomorrow maybe we have decided your land has been chosen for these garbages, but those things was not there. And in that village, majority of the dwellers are the Reang community, and approximately 3 hectares, I think the land have been covered for this landfill. I asked the villagers, so they told me, and approximately 35 families were like literally affected by this landfill. So, and what happened was, like, the officials also, they threatened to these villagers to send them to a jail if the whole when the whole villagers, they protested blocking the village road, those garbage trucks for this garbage. But what happened, since the villagers they were threatened, so they were frightened, because from the police, so they retreat from the protest, and since then they continue to live with the stinky smell of the waste in the village. And the few challenges which I see right now is that in normal days, where in the villages, or in the people, like as a people, that we use mosquito net to use to we use mosquito net to avoid from mosquito bites. But however, because of the maybe because of the staggering numbers of this the smells, or what you call, it leads to an overgrowth of a huge number of flies and insects, leading their normal days living, that even to eat food every morning, noon, night, they have to use their mosquito net right now. So there is also a problem that I see, the water problem that in the village was there from a very, very long time, because the villagers, they usually use the mud a well which is near a pond to the village for the drinking water. But now it seems that that drinking water has also become a dirty, because of the garbage, because the landfill of the garbage, it's not in the plain area, it is kind of a mountain, so the both side it flows that the garbages. So the liquid of all those like the garbages has like gone to the ponds, like the water. So it has become a complete, the dirty water, but still they have no choice. The villagers, they have to drink. And for about every day, for about 15 to 20 garbage trucks comes to the village. Even if it comes in the middle of the night, like 1 or 2 a.m., where that completely disturb their sleep. And despite now, when I asked from this villagers, like, since it is under this TT, this ADC village area, so I asked, what about the politician, the leaders? What are they saying? Did you try to approach this and that? But they told that no, the leaders pay no heed to their requests or try to solve their problems. And the villagers who are near, right to the near of the landfill, they're also uh, facing a serious health issues, such as the stomach ache, diarrhea, to both the elders as well as the children. So I think this will it lead to a further, the health issues all as well to the uh, like the children's. And the smell is just like unbearable, as in the whole of the village. Like in my during my field visit, what I saw was that the garbage, the truck, they, when they could not reach to the main landfill, or when they cannot reach the main the garbage, like a dumping area, they just throw on the road, where the complete it would smell has all over the village. So after I have returned back to my home, I was completely like, I literally could get the smell, the stinky smell of shit on me, sorry for the language. So that I wanted to throw like my shirt or my boots that I was wearing, because it was complete like I was not able to, I literally could not have my dinner that night. So I just, that was the problem that I mean, the challenges that I saw, and that the peoples of Kalachari, they are facing. And the villagers reportedly, they also witness coming out of the wild animals, such as like the fox and other, like, all these things are coming. So now, looking into this situation like this in the sixth schedule tribal areas of Tripura, I could say, or anybody would be saying that, the violation to fundamental rights, it's to the livelihood of indigenous people is not new, but though it has become a very regular event these days. However, this cannot be allowed to continue. Like, this is what it came into my mind, because in the effects of these the solid waste disposals, the diverse aspect, like the participant, the social benefit, or the access to information, or respect or the protection of rights, access to justice, these are completely missing out actually. When I ask, like, have you been even given any detailed information? Even now, since I have taken up this study, I'm trying to get, and I was trying to get some information actually regarding this, any legal notice. Like, I could be wrong, but till now I did not find. Even today also, this morning I was searching. I literally went to the government website, if there are any like notification notice regarding these projects, but none. I could not really find anywhere. So these are the few problems that I saw in what is going on currently in Tripura. And when I look at the waste management, like, I have discovered that no proper organized waste disposal systems is also exist. This kind of the dangerous waste, or this kind of because the landfill, it can also produce a very toxic gas as well. But these are managed very indiscriminately, because these are not properly been handled. The transportation system also not good, and the treatment, I mean, the treatment was supposed to be actually done it, but this also not been taken properly. So in my conclusion, what I would like to say is that, this waste management or the waste disposal is all the activities, or it is, from the inception to the final disposal, it is the responsibility of the state. But what I see is that, the the continuity of the state's encroachment to the indigenous tribal lands. So it also, like the legal and the regulatory frameworks that relate to waste management are also not like, properly been there. Like that particularly if you look at this, the Tripura State Pollution Control Board, it says that they're continuously working for all their effort, but this kind of without any notice, just identifying these areas as a landfill, this negatively affect the livelihood of the well-being and the local environment as well as the ecosystem services. So in my what I want to say is that this the indigenous peoples that we say, or particularly under the provision of the sixth schedule, if you look at, there are various provisions have been coming, there are various schemes are supposed to be, but in practically these are completely missing. I mean, that is my as far my observation in my field. So I think that these issues that need to look at very more systematically. And as I said that my study, it's still on the process. I'm not able to maybe give you the concrete conclusion as well.
Thomas, is a quick interruption. Has
Yes.
the bureaucrats or leaders from Ethnicity has been able to do anything on this regard?
No, no. Right now, there's still few some activists. Are there one or two, like they're trying to actually look into the matter, but till now there is no. And it has been a year, actually, a year. So it's going to be a more than a year. So the issue, but still now, no, I have not come across any this kind of any looking to solve the problem. So I look forward in the discussion so that I can also be benefit with the new perspective, so that I can really maybe do the study properly more. So with this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. It's a great work and great data from the field. In fact, it reminded me of the toxic mess that I think Chevron has created in Ecuador, part of Amazon, right? It's the case that they won, and the Dakota Access Pipeline in Canada USA border, where it's a long protest from 2016, I guess, where what they're calling it environmental racism, and I think that's what we are seeing in Tripura as well. What they're doing to indigenous land. Probably, I think we'll come back to these discussions probably later. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Now we have our next speaker is Dr. Walter Fernandes, who needs no introduction. He has been very prolific on issues of women, of customary law, and on water and resources in this region. Looking forward to listening to you, Walter, again. Over to you. Walter, you're mute. Walter, you're mute. Unmute your mic.
Okay. Can you hear now? Can you hear?
Yes, yes.
Hello, can you hear now?
Yes, Walter, we can hear you.
Okay. So let me. Sorry about the problem I had with the mic. Now, much of what I wanted to say has already been said, so that makes my work much easier. The first speaker began with by describing the sixth schedule, and I'll restrict myself to sixth schedule and land. And what is important to know is that the paragraph 3 of the sixth schedule on land confers much power on this ADC. But in practice, particularly in the recent sixth schedule areas, or say of Borderland, Tripura, the third paragraph 3 has been made very ambiguous. So And secondly, we saw it in the book which will come out this week, which R.K. Debbarma has been referring to, Ethnicity and Land Conflicts, Development-Induced Displacement in Tripura 1947 to 2010. It will be out this week. And this is not a commercial for it. Now, what we realized is that the sixth schedule has in practice made no difference. We have seen in other studies that there is much ambiguity in the sixth schedule because it, on paper, it gives much power to the ADC, particularly when it comes to land. In practice, the village chief, Gaumbara, is considered the controlling authority for land. But in practice, the administration, to make it easier, treats the Gaumbara, the village chief, as the owner of all land. So the administration deals with him alone and takes over land by paying compensation to him. So say the people from the fifth schedule areas have been asking for the sixth schedule, and in all the dialogue with them, I keep telling them, try to improve the fifth schedule by inserting in it the components of the sixth schedule that give more power to the ADC instead of going for the sixth schedule, because in practice, land is treated as the village chief's property by the administration, though that is not the reality. On paper, it's not the reality. Secondly, in Tripura, the law was changed in 1960 to recognize only individual owned land, patta land, and most tribal land was and continues to be community owned. They did not have documents to prove that it was their land. So they lost much of their land. And that is where the conflicts, ethnic conflicts began around land in the 1970s, when so much land was taken over for refugee rehabilitation and the rehabilitation of the migrants, and then for the Dumbur Dam. The conflicts are around land. And the sixth schedule is the result of that conflict, part of the agreement. By that time, much of their land was lost already. And after that, in practice, no difference has been made between tribal areas and non-tribal areas as far as community land is concerned. It is treated as state property. So there is much ambiguity in that. And we just did the first part preliminary study of 3 states, including Tripura in the Northeast, on the forest legislation and implementation. And we realize that that too has not made much difference. In theory, on paper, the ADC has much power. In practice, as Biswaranjan said right in the beginning, the ADC is treated as an arm of the state. It waits for orders from the state. It doesn't have the funds required to run its affairs. So for when it comes to forests, for example, the land is complete, forests are completely in the hands of the forest department. The ADC does not claim its rights over it. And land, again, much of the tribal land is community land and much of it forest. And the the ADC itself does not claim much right over it. As for the customary law, it is not recognized in Tripura. It is either, though in their daily life, they deal with it under their customary law, but the reality is that legally it is not recognized. The customary law makes a difference between individually owned land and most tribes. It depends on differs from tribe to tribe. In most tribes keep a separation between community land and the land owned by, cultivated by individuals. But the state does not recognize any such thing. So there is much ambiguity concerning land in the 6 scheduled areas. And at the moment, for example, a struggle is going on where the BSF is trying to take over tribal land. And it's just coming and taking it over without any notification. And 3 villages are affected. And the villagers are struggling against it. But the state, under the law, there is very little they can do. They can just keep it theirs by struggling against it rather than under the law. So I think one needs to look at it because land alienation, tribal land alienation has been massive. We don't have the exact figure. 20 to 40% of their land was lost in the 1960s for rehabilitating the partition refugees and later migrants from then East Pakistan. Then more land has been taken over for dams, particularly the Dumbu dams. About 32,000 acres were taken over. So it is massive, but there is no protection granted under the ADC. The ADC, in theory, has some power. It can grant pattas. It can make, whether the ADC can make laws on land or not is disputed today, because there is a 2003, I think, Supreme Court judgment in the Khasi Hills, which makes these powers very ambiguous. That has to be decided. So legally, one needs to take a new look at the ADC and the land laws, the powers of the ADC. But more importantly, one needs to look at the powers in practice, whether we can continue to treat the ADC as an arm of the state government. That requires a new budgeting system. The ADC has to have a much bigger budget, and things have to be clarified under the power and the budget. So there are the financial aspects, legal aspects, and the ambiguity of the law, the powers on paper and in reality. And I think we need to look at all these issues when it comes to the 6th schedule in general, and particularly more recent 6 schedules, more specifically Tripura, because it's, I think, the most recent, where the land issue has been left probably intentionally very ambiguous. 2, the powers are not very clear. And where they are clear, there are financial constraints. These are the issues that have to be dealt with. And 3, the reality of the ADC being run under political party lines, and the whole relationship with the state depends on that. Now, the present ADC is trying to increase its powers. For example, it is thinking of its own police department, having its own police. Whether it will succeed in that or not, it depends on again, the budget will come in its way. But I think one needs to look at that process and see whether when the ADC government has the will, it can in practice put the existing laws into practice in favor of the ADC rather than remaining a wing of the state government. So, as I said, there are 3 different sets of ambiguities. 1, the legal ambiguity. 2, the reality on paper and in practice, how the administration deals with the land issue and its ownership. 3, the budgetary ambiguity, the power, the ADC having powers, but not being able to exercise them because of financial constraints. I think I agree with you, with Biswaranjan, that the ADC needs to be, the 6th schedule needs to be changed, but I don't think just legal change will suffice. One needs to look at the financial and the political issues in practice. One needs to also look at the customary law, whether the customary law can be given greater, more importance in practice, not just on paper, whether it can be given a little more power and how to do that. I think this is the discussion that we need to continue, and that's where I stop. I think we can have discussion on that rather than me speaking more. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Walter. I think so far what we have heard from Viswa and Romita, Thomas, and Walter is, I think, what leads to the recent mobilization for separate state in Tripura. And I think there is no better person to speak about it than our next speaker, Sunil Kalai, who is a scholar, a filmmaker, and activist. I think he's the president of this new organization called Mondra in Tripura. Let's give time to him now. Sunil, over to you.
Can you hear me?
You're echoing. Try speaking again.
You unmute the other one.
Okay, yeah, speak.
Okay.
We can hear you.
Can you all hear me now? Am I audible? Okay. Good evening. Much of the point is already spoken by Walter sir on the 6th schedule and the land. However, RK has given me the topic to speak on the land and indigeneity. Of course, when we speak of empowerment, or when we speak of changing of the infrastructure or some changes in policy, I don't think we need to change all these things. The very concept is you are given the legal document, but however, those documents are not implemented in a fair manner. There is the whole issues with the indigenous community in terms of land holding. For example, when we talk of the indigeneity and the land issues in Tripura, most of the people from outside will say this is a new issues or a new concept of separate state. I strongly disagree with that, because if you look at, or if you go back to the pre-independence period or the pre-independence era, or not even pre-independence in our terms, it would be rather the pre-merging with the Indian territory. So the debate and discussion has already begun with the issues of the disputed boundaries of Tripura, which means, but those were nothing to do with the Indian government, the present Indian government. Let me be very clear with that. Not even with Nehru or Gandhi, not even Balabhai Patel. They were never in the picture. And with whom, where, because Tripura was a princely state and it was ruled by a dynasty, and they have their own ministers, they have their own governance at that point of time, and it reached to much bigger areas. Now, so when the viceroy or the British government or the British rulers requested, or rather tried to force the Tripura territory to merge with the Federation of India, it was in 1935, where 1930s the dialogue began. But the Maharajas were never in agreement, because they knew it, that somewhere down the line, if the princely state of India will merge with the Indian territory, then the welfare of the people will be ignored. Now, in the process, in 1949, they have merged with the Indian territory. So there was no proper demarcation of the boundaries. Till today, the boundaries were or are still undefined. Now, coming back to the present situation, what happened? Now, statehood of Tripura after the Union territory is from 1971 to or maybe 1970s. But what actually happened is all those land reforms acts, the land reform acts of Tripura were not to give rights to the people, rather to identify which tribal community or the indigenous community has more land, and they come with an act called Shillong, right? Now, in terms of Tripura, the land holding is not by the community as of today. Now, if you talk of other autonomous district council, the Garu Hills, for example, the Garu Hills, the land ownership is for the Garu community. The Khasi Hills is for the Khasi community. But it is only in the case of Tripura, whether it is in autonomous district council or other parts of forest, the land is owned either by government, and they call it government caste land, and then the forest, even within ADC area, it is owned by the forest department. Now, the financial constraint should not be the result of such kind of rules and regulations or the law. But what happens? You own the land, even if the government gives me the pata or the parcha. Now, there is a problem. And the problem is that the dilution of land is the major issues today. And the tribal or the indigenous community will never be able to make the land in their names, because Parkani which is the land inheritance system, especially for my community. We still have the community land, and the government is interested in making it common property resources. Now, they don't want to give it to the Kalai community. They don't want to give it to the Debbarma community, but rather they're interested in giving to the civil societies or some societies which are registered under 1860s Societies Registration Act. Then there come the issues of audit. There come the issues of tax. Now, as a tribal, you're exempted from paying tax. But the moment you register, you are not free from paying tax. Now, there is one of the major issues when regards to the land rights. Now, you may be also given the land rights, and there are thousands of schemes by government of India, whether it is through Niti Aayog, whether it is through Agriculture Department, but even after plantation, making use of the land, what rights do you have? You don't have the rights at all. You don't have the rights to cut down the trees. You don't have the rights to sell that outside the Autonomous District Council. And you don't get even the permission to make use of all those resources. The land you can use, you may have the rights, but the plantations, the crops, you are not allowed to use or sell in the way how other communities from different community can make use of it. Now, coming back to the core issues, I think it is not a disparity, but it is a conspiracy. And much of the issues Walter Sir has already spoken. So I would end by saying that the issues of the land rights or the political rights in Tripura is not a disparity alone, but it's largely conspiracy. Thank you, RK, because many of the speakers have already covered the topic.
I think we can. Hello. I think we can now have a brief conversation on the issues taken up by all the speakers, and my request the speakers to check the chat box on comments that has been meant for you, and see if you can respond to those comments. But I want to begin with a few comments, and it's to, I was wondering if Romita would like to share about how she was part of the a committee for codification of customary laws, and how what experience that she had in that committee. Romita, are you there?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, RK, for giving me opportunity. Yes, since 2014, I was like part of the process of like I was doing research on customary law, and during my LLM studies also I wrote my dissertation on areas of access to justice. So mostly in the access to justice of women, of young women in the formal court of law and also in the traditional legal system. So yes, I am not directly part of the codification process, but I feel as I belong to a legal field, so I have a primary responsibility to look into both, that is in the court of law as well as in the village level, where there is a traditional adjudication system which are in practice. Because when we talk about justice, I will confine to my tribe, Reang. We have an opportunity, we have a dual opportunity, like either we settle the dispute at a village level or we go to the court. But being in a community, we have a primary responsibility to respect the society, and we are abide by the village level. So being a woman and being part of these studies, I have come across that it is very important and vital that with legal education, I should look into the village level, how it is functioning, because there is a hearsay from lots of hearings. So, like I have heard from many people saying that both supporting of customary law and others are like some sections support customary law, some say that this is not suitable, this is derogatory. So considering that, I thought like I should look into it, and I have come across many the proceedings. I have visited by my, I have observed myself, I have seen the proceedings. So there I have seen like how during the course of 2014 till date and still ongoing, I'm seeing that always the decision makers are men and maximum men participation. And especially right now on the process of codification also, because codification is on process. I think bill is already passed by TTADC, and now again redrafting and discussion is going on the process of like putting it further for codifications of the Reang customary law. So in this initially, yes, in the first draft, like yes, women's participation, women's consultations were lacking. That is what I have found. And but rectification means with this second draft, I think more women are being involved, and women are being made one of the committee members also in this drafting discussion forum. Because to say that we right now, there are, see, earlier days, whatever happened, earlier days, there is no much educated women also. But my point is that now many are educated with legal knowledge. If not me, there are even others, other women. And of course, men are also there. So legal consultation, especially in the process of drafting, is very important and essential, so that it doesn't get in what violation of human rights, and it does not violate the constitutional provisions, because the one who practice customary law are those who are in the village. Educated people go to court. Those who are well-off family, if they don't find the better decision at the village level, they just jump to the court. So for them, no need to worry. But for those section of people who cannot afford the court proceedings, who are unaware of the legal laws, who doesn't know where to go, where to approach, who have a language barrier, communication barrier, transportation. So for those section of people, village level is the place where they seek for justice. So considering that, the process of codification and also the entire system, like which is on the process right now for the entire drafting system and the codification, I feel like it is very important that more women should be included, more legal people should be included, because what we see is that still we have, although we have it will sound negative, but although we have a section of people, like it has gone into the organization base, the drafting. So then after that, the patriarchy mindset, the women's voice are not being so much, means women's are not being consulted, just in the name that
Romita,
women will be.
Can you wrap up?
Yes, because a woman will be marrying to other tribe. Women is promised to marry other tribe. Just considering that the sideline means a sidelining of women, especially in the in the process of consultation. So this all are being right now going on, and this is all being experienced. And just for the mere I think like more women should be involved, and more women should come up and speak up for the issues. And also, like I would say that as we have many literate but uneducated people right now. And of course, I'll say uneducated because we need proper education, who will take up responsibility and who will fight for the society good cause. And women, especially women, like we always doesn't want to take up responsibilities. And we feel like this is not our thing. It is men who will be the forefront to look after the society. But in the long run, it is women who should be part and parcel of the society, and women have a very vital role to play and take up a responsibility to lead the society, and also be part and parcel with men, and also upgrade the human values and integrity. So I feel like both the section of people, like both men and women, should go together to work for the betterment and upliftment of the society. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so there's a general question from my friend Ram from Manipur on mining and rubber plantation. May I request either Sunil or Biswaranjan or Thomas to answer this? Probably you can start with Sunil.
In the case of Tripura, they don't have specific rules as of now when it comes to rubber or mining, and that could be largely due to the lack of knowledge when it comes to land rights by the people or by the government, or the negligence of the government when it comes to the rights of the indigenous community. Somewhere they tend to ignore certain process and they try to bypass. That is where I think where Biswaranjan was saying about the very structure of empowering the zonal officers and sub-zonal officers to the level of DM, SDM, and SDUs. Now, presently in Tripura, what is happening is the testing for finding out oil by ONGC is happening from place to place. Now, earlier, even now, 80% of the ONGC, where they're mining, the royalties are not being paid to the Autonomous District Council. Forget about the ONGC, even land smuggling. When I said land smuggling, I'm not talking about the real estate business. I'm just taking the example of a small sand business for buildings or the brick industry. The land are in a tribal area. They do the mining of the sand and they take it to non-ADC area, and there is no process of giving royalty to the ADC government or the Autonomous District Council. Therefore, as Romita has already said and RK in the beginning, now there is, and this is where I would agree when Sir Walter was saying there is a huge ambiguity when it comes to the implementation of the policy and implementation of the rights of the Autonomous District Council and the tribals when it comes to the core issues of using the resources, whether it is coal mines, whether it is setting up an industry, whether it is making use of your own land, forest, and nothing that people would get.
Okay, Bishwa, would you like to add anything to the answer?
Yeah, I think quite a lot is covered already. Maybe I don't have much to say more. Yeah.
Okay, Thomas, do you have anything to add on this question? I think it's a really interesting question to
No, sir. Actually, I have not looked into this rubber plantation part, so I would not be able to say it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think we have a question request from Anthony Debbarma, who is a prominent human rights activist in Tripura. Probably, I think may I request him to come in his comment or question. Anthony?
I cannot. Hello.
Yes, I can hear.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Okay. Fine. Well, I would just like to reflect all the presenters' view, and of course, Father Walter has rightly pointed out. When Romita was actually talking about tradition and custom, about the equality, gender inequality, I think all our young scholars need to actually go more deeper in terms of understanding the customary practices. Whatever they are presenting today, it's more on general terms like how the other peoples are actually involved in terms of understanding the inequality of the gender balance. But as per in Tripura, where it talks about different community, actually there's no such kind of gender inequality issue in Tripura.
Let me push back a bit here. I think there is, and we usually hear from activists and student union leaders.
No, I mean,
who,
this is you are right, but this is what actually I'm actually pinpointing. These are not practices that because we have been adopted and we have actually been influenced by the general other non-indigenous people. But if we really talk about the authenticity, I mean authentications of the indigenous people practice, and there is no such kind of gender inequality issue in Tripura.
I want to ask one question to Brother Anthony.
Right.
Brother,
yeah.
Before I forget, if you appoint a village Chaudhry or the village headman in Tripura or the Rai, who are the people who becomes the chief of any community? Who is the ruler of Tripura even in pre-independence and whose independence when it comes to taking up the heirship, whether it is the princess or the prince who becomes the king, or whether it is the husband or wife who becomes the village Chaudhry.
See,
how can you bluntly say that?
No. These are the questions of the younger generation. When we talk about the
I'll have to stop the conversation here.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. Host, can you please mute Anthony?
Hello.
Yeah. So I think that's an old debate that we don't need to go there again. We have noticed in the recent assembly where the MLAs from the IPFT party introduced a bill saying that tribal women who marry outside the tribe would lose SC status, right? And you also notice that if you ask them, what about men who marry outside? Listen, men can retain their identity. Isn't that the situation that we are facing in Tripura?
Can I come in, RK?
Can you move on to next questions, comments in chat box? We're running out of time. Can you please take a look at the chat box, look at the comments for you and answer?
RK, you can do one thing. Why don't you read out the questions and we can decide who to answer?
It will take time. You read on an answer.
Yeah.
There are no questions.
RK, probably Dr. Walter wanted to make a brief intervention.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no comment or question on the chat box. I'll give time to Walter.
No, I just want to say that I disagree both with Romita and with this one, Sunil. Because I think, I mean Anthony Debbarma. Because you are speaking of polarization of equality, inequality. And that I don't think is the tribal reality anyway, including in Tripura. That woman has a higher status than in caste society, the tribal woman, but she has in no tribe, not even in the matrilineal tribe, has she been traditionally or today equal to men. So I don't think we should make such a this polarization between equality and inequality. There are degrees of equality, degrees of inequality. And the tribal woman has been traditionally better off than her caste counterpart, but has never been equal to men. So just women, and she has a higher status because of her work on the common property resources and in the family. And with the disappearance, more and more, her losing control over the common property resources, her status too is declining. I think we need to look at the land issue from the gender perspective too. Sorry for intervening on this.
While we wait for other questions, maybe I think, Romita, would you want to respond?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Yes, Father, I do agree with you that, and even I have mentioned in my presentation that in a tribal society, we share equal positions and the position of women are highly respected. But there are certain sections with regards to, I'm not talking in general about the position of women, but it is overall with regard to access to justice. So somewhere there are like biased decisions went off, and the decisions are mostly taken by men. So in that way, I would like to reflect with one case which I have studied, and this is still ongoing. So this is a case of a woman where brothers wanted to take away her property, just saying that she's a woman and she should go to her in-laws. She's already around 50 age right now. So what happened is her elder brother wanted to take away the property, and the matters was brought before the village elder, village chaudhry. Then when they fixed the date for hearing, the woman, she already informed that she will not be present that day. But Chaudhry is already well informed. He said that I have to inform the other party. But what happened by later afternoon, around 2 p.m., suddenly she got called that come down, we will have a we'll have a sitting. Then she said, how can I come now? I am already away from the village and I have already informed. But irrespective of that, they said they held a hearing, and she was her property, which the elder brother wanted, that property, the chaudhry, the chaudhry, we don't say gaubura, means I'm talking about my own village where I am living right now. So he went and he already gave a decision that elder brother will get this much land property, whereas this land is already occupied by her, and she already hold patta land. She is cultivating that land for almost 20 years and above. And at this point of time, brother wanted to take away that property. And this is a share of her paternal property. So after the death of her property, parents, now elder brother wanted to take away the property. Just because she's a woman, she should not get that much property and she should go to her in-laws. So then the chaudhry intervened, and he already went and he settled the demarcation like up to where elder brother should get. So in that way, why I'm saying is that this sometimes like I'm not talking only about the position, but how the village traditional structure sometimes violates the principles of natural justice, like equal opportunity to be heard. So without her presence, she was not given chance to even defend herself or put up her point, like why she doesn't want to give share the property to her elder brother. Without that, like they already demarcated, like already half, as she's absent, that she doesn't appear. That's why more than what he has demanded, that means on, I think it's 60% that land is already means they have decided that that will be taken away by elder brother. So this is where like I have come across the practical experience. And now Chaudhary himself went to that women's house and saying that the next morning, saying that he has he wanted up to that, because initially he wanted homestead, but now not for homestead, they wanted the entire half of the property. So if you agree, fine. If you're not agree, then you have to, means you go and fight, means you go and challenge. So this is how the things are being happening at the village level. And I have also come across many more cases like where a widow, after the death of her husband, the husband's elder brother, younger brother, they started encroaching their boundaries, and gradually like they started occupying the land. If that widow doesn't have a strong son who will protest, then they just shift the boundary and they started encroaching slowly. So this is the practical scenario which I'm saying. So my point is that not only about the upholding about the position or equality, it's not that. But what I'm saying is that, see, I'm women, that's why I can see, I can feel like how women has felt when decision was given against her own decision, means against her. So this is where I'm saying that I am from legal field. That's why I am aware of this equal opportunity to be heard, of the fair trial, upholding of human rights, non-derogatory to the constitutional provisions. But practically things are happening. And of course, with the Anthony also, I do agree that yes, in tribal society, this inequality is not there. But practically, the implementation at the village level, which we means it happens in the villages, in the remote areas. So majorly, theoretically, there is no such inequality, fine. But I'm saying like in the case of the practical implications of customary laws, means not customary law, actually like customary law is the shelter, is the tool which is providing the section men to what to say, to take their own decision. So like in the name of custom, the means many rights are being violated. Yes,
we're running out of time.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll wind up here. Yes.
Yeah. So what I can do is to all the speakers, if you take about a minute for your final thoughts or comments, and then after that, over to you, Comrade Mira.
Just one request, in case anybody other ones have questions, they can just also unmute themselves directly. So we have enabled the option, so people can just maybe ask their questions if they have any.
Yeah, Bishwa, you raised hand. I think it's.
Yeah. Can I add on? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Just to add on what Romita has said, I agree with what you have already, what you said. I think even in Tripura, in a tribal society right now, we should not remain very complacent about, the relationship between women and men, as having a very equal society at this point of time. So I think it's important that we also need to reflect and interrogate what's going on with us. So even while I was at home, last year, I have even seen my own relative members, where there is a rampant violence against women happening. If you say that traditionally the women in our society is equal, actually they are not equal. Because see, beating a woman or a wife has almost become like a normal, in the earlier days. So even now it is becoming beating a woman. And if you see in the rural areas, in the villages, see, beating even now it has become very normal. So they have no legal laws, there's nothing to protect them. But, if they go to the parents will just just shut your mouth and just listen to your husband. These are the kinds of words that comes from the elders. So I think we need to also reflect on this kind of violence that are taking place, not only in the interior areas, even this also happens in Agartala. It's just that nobody speaks about it, So yeah, I think these are important things right now.
In fact, part of her presentation was on violence against women, the rise in Tripura. And I think because of time, she didn't talk about it.
Yeah, and also what I just want to point is, see, patriarchy is experienced in a varied forms. Okay, it's not only about if you are having a formal political participation, like in village committee. Now women have 50% reservation. That doesn't mean that we have been able to have equal society between man and woman. But it is also being manufactured into different ways. Now, if the woman is a chairman or chair lady, still they don't call chair lady. Okay, they still, even though a woman is a chair lady, but they still call it a chairman. Okay, so because there's a 50% reservation, so the husband actually becomes, does every work. So here again, yeah, so that's right.
Thomas, would you like to take a brief minute, final comments, final thought?
Thank you, sir. I don't really have much to say on this the discussion is going on this gender issue, but I just wanted to just give my, from my study that actually this is what I was expecting from all the speakers, regardless of my a presentation, that I'll be enriched with a lot of new perspectives to look into the matter which I'm currently looking into. So looking forward to, have a maybe good write-up or maybe do some solution, because particularly the place where the issue that is happening, I mean, nobody is really going actually there. So I'm also new in this field, so I have no any other way but to write something. So I will try how I can maybe let their voice reach to some who can really see the matter, because looking into the matter, the place where I'm collecting the data within the place is really not good. So according to me, I think this should not continue. So this must. Thank you, sir.
To the four of you who are from Tripura, any comment, any thought on how rubber plantation has improved the economic situation of tribals in Tripura?
So can I add on?
Yes.
Okay. I think, yeah, rubber came with the initiation of, government. Okay, basically, if you say like 70s, 80s, and all of those, even up to that, because I'm from South Tripura, which is erstwhile, South Tripura, now it's a Guwahati district. So those were the places where rubber was, in a very full swing. The government has, activated in those areas. So initially people are not much bothered about it. But gradually people took it up, rubber, as one of their livelihood source. Okay. So now it has, I think Tripura is now, I think it's enough, I think, for a small state to have that much of rubber, plantation in a small state. Yes, now then it has somewhere to some extent, I think it's a kind of a dilemma that that people also adopted just for the sake of livelihood, because they were into Zoom before, and Zoom, the fossil that you get Zoom into the yield also has shrink because the forest needs to be as old as, like, for example, 40 years. I was in Gandasara, in a place like Bogira and all that. There are no more forests anymore for people because they have to even cross the border and even move to Bangladesh, some of them. And there in Bangladesh, if they go, they have to, because most of the land bordering there is owned by Chakmas, so they have to pay annual revenue to Chakmas, like that, especially from those interior places from Gandasara, like this. And probably there could have been other form of an livelihood alternative, then I'm sure they would be adopting to that process, because Zoom also is shrinking to that some extent.
Mm.
Yeah, that's why.
Sunil, you wanted to add on the.
You said how rubber has helped the economy of the people in Tripura. That's, I think, the question. Yeah, because when you talk of other crops, most of the crops are seasonal, whether it is paddy, pineapple, and other crops. But rubber is the only crops that give you latex on the everyday basis. So every month it gives some kind of economy to every.
Is there any data straight down on the
Yeah,
how it is
Professor
improved?
Indranil Bomig is doing on that, but I have not looked into that. But yes, it has for the tribal area. In the tribal areas, rubber is the largest revenue generation as of now.
Okay, and there are two questions from Mira on the chat box. Can anyone or Walter can't answer that?
What is that?
It's has to do with the proposed amendment to the 6th schedule and the Forest Right Act.
Which act?
Forest Right.
Forest rights. Yeah, I would rather restrict myself to the Forest Rights Act, but Tripura has implemented better than most other states till a few years ago. But the question is whether just giving patta land is adequate for their livelihood, whether it does not deal enough with common land. And that is where the problems are going to arise in the future, because you have to keep depending on the government to give you patta land, and there is resistance from the forest department. But more importantly, when it comes to the customary law, I think it's time we really looked at the reality from a different perspective. What is happening today is the imposition of the formal law on the customary law without really preparing people for that. So the whole discussion I heard between Sunil and this one is that imposition of the modern law, formal law on the customary law. And that creates much greater ambiguity, and the people tend to, the powerful section tend to play one against the other. And in the process, the tribes, particularly women, tend to lose out. So I think we need to take a new look at the role of the customary law in the 6th schedule without making an absolute of it. It needs to be amended. It has to be modernized from the class and gender equity perspective. But I think we cannot just continue with this imposition of the formal on the traditional and continue that ambiguity that exists.
Yes, Vishwa.
Yeah, I want to add last point on this patta and, in relation to FRA, because what I have come across while I was in the field is, so there's a problem in getting a patta as well, because no doubt Tripura shows a very progressive, shows as a progressive state when it comes to distribution of the patta, land, which is sourced in the reports. But however, in the ground, that what I have seen was a lot of people have got patta, but they have the same people have received the similar patta, but do not know where is their map. Okay, so they have not received the map. In the sense, two people have received the same place, but do not know where is their map. So basically, when you receive a patta, the document, you also need to know where is your land. So therefore, people have not known where is their land, but they have received their document. But this doesn't signify that, but in the report it says that, oh, patta has been distributed. So this is a problematic. Okay, then another point is that this has kind of created a conflict between the neighbors, within the village. Because then another point is that, there are, before there was a common land where people can go and plug bamboo shoot, or go and collect firewood, or you can say go and collect all kinds of jungle potatoes and all of that kind. And now with patta, it has created kind of an ownership. Okay, so certain plot of land is owned by certain people. So the plot that is a plot for the villagers to pluck or gather bamboo shoot has now become, that land belongs to somebody else. So this person doesn't allow anymore to the neighbors to go and gather the firewood or a bamboo shoot. Then where will this person go? Where will the villagers go? So this kind of conflict it has rather created. So therefore, this is another kind of a very problematic. Yeah. Thank you.
Is that why I can't eat bamboo shoot anymore whenever I go home? There's no bamboo shoot to eat. It's all on the rubber plantation.
Okay.
Miraz, should we wrap up here?
Yeah, have all the speakers made their final comments, or does anyone else want to make a final comment?
Sunil, you want to make final comment?
I just want to add one more point as final comment regarding the Parta system or the introduction of the Parcha or the Khatian. That's why I said, now earlier the lands were owned by a community. Even in the case of Khasi Hill District Council, if any government or any industry or if any institutions wants to occupy some land for setting up for even school, first they go to the community chief. So it is the community chief which allocates the land. But in the case of Tripura, what happens is, I use my land, my grandfather has been using this land, my forefather has been using this land, but the introduction of the this paper, the work of bureaucracy, has actually created a lot of chaos. Now, earlier in my village or in any of the tribal villages, nobody has the right to sell the land because it was never bought by any of the family member, right? But today, the moment government started introducing the Parcha and the Khatian by individual's name, what happened? People started selling, and I think that is the one of the root causes of where Romita was given an example between the brothers and sisters. Now, if the land belongs to a community, as a community, like indigeneity, then the people decides how much of which land can a person actually use. That I have seen in my own village. So the introduction of Parcha system is also creating problem because in Tripura now, even the houses that we live in, it's a government caste land. Now, if I apply or you apply, you will get hardly 3 gandas, right? And even the land which you have been using for ages and ages, if you want to make into a Khatian number, you have to pay huge tax. So, for example, per kani, even in the rural areas, it goes to the land valuation of 1,80,000, which means just calculate with 20 kanis of rubber plantation, which a poor villager has. So it comes to more than 20, 30 lakhs to make the paper. That's big challenges.
Okay, thank you, Sunil, and thank you to all the participants. Over to you, Mira.
Unfortunately, Mira is having some trouble with her internet, so she was not able to turn her video on. So I'll just conclude on behalf of NAPM. My name is Amod. Firstly, just to thank Professor Debbarma and all the speakers today. I think the discussion today was a very good complement to the previous 2 sessions that we had in the last few weeks. On similar kind of issues of governance, resource rights, ethnicity across different states in the Northeast. So Mizoram, Meghalaya, and now Tripura. I think in each of the sessions, we've seen that different issues are coming through, right? So we tend to see the Northeast as this homogeneous region, but I think what the sessions have shown very clearly is also the different issues of governance and the functioning of tribal autonomous district councils are actually very different, and also the issues which come up are very different. So I just want to thank especially Romita ji for bringing on the issues of gender and women's rights in the context of these customary decision-making mechanisms. And also for all of the speakers for bringing out some of the key issues around local governance. Also towards the end now, the discussion around forest rights. I think we hope that it really contributes to kind of creating a little bit more visibility for the issues across the states. We will have one final session next week, which will be again on issues of governance, ethnicity, resource rights, specifically focused on the state of Assam. So that will again be at 7 p.m. Next Sunday. So please do join us for that session. Thank you again to all the speakers. Thank you, Professor Debbarma, and have a good evening, everyone.